if you cannot hit depth, hit full range of motion on a particular weight for a particular number of reps, you are not strong enough yet for that weight. Right guys, today's video is going to be about form, and in particular half reps, quarter reps, and when they are appropriate and when you really ought to be going to full range of motion. Okay, so I'm going to use the squat to demonstrate this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a squat with an empty bar. It's going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, fairly easy for me. 20 kilos. And go to full range of motion, right down to the bottom of my squat and back up again. Okay. Hopefully you'll agree it looked fairly easy. And because it was easy, because I'm strong enough for 20 kilo back squat, I went to full range of motion and it was, it looked pretty smooth. Now, if I was to stick 140 kilos on there, I reckon, current strength levels, probably not, I reckon I could get 1 rep, possibly. But the temptation for me to not go all the way down to the bottom there will be so massive, because I know that I can get about a quarter way down and come back up again. I'm strong enough for that, definitely. I'm strong enough probably for about half rep, but am I strong enough for a full rep on 140? Probably not, to be honest, at current strength levels. And the reason for that is because at the bottom of a lot of moves, in particular pressing moves where you lift the weight up, the movement is really, really difficult at the bottom. Nobody ever did a squat, came back up and failed it here. You don't get to here and suddenly go, oh yeah, that's really hard, okay? Nobody ever does that, because a squat in particular is really difficult at the bottom. If you get down here and it's really heavy, there is a fair chance that you're not getting back up again, okay? That's because the move gets more, as I said, the move gets more difficult as you go further down, okay? Now, here's the important bit. You will only ever get stronger at the bottom of the movement by going there. You're not going to get stronger at the bottom of a movement, particularly of a movement like a squat, if you don't go there, okay? I could, like I said before, I could probably load this bar up with 140 kilos and I could do quarter squats all day. Probably not all day, maybe for like 10 reps. But that is a completely different ball game to going down all the way to depth, right? So first and foremost, full range of motion is important because you only get strong in the range of motion that you train in. And if you want to be strong, really strong, you need to train the full range of motion for the entire exercise. Now, here's the next thing. So people will and always want to progress. People want to move up weights and up reps. I've never met anyone that wanted to go in the gym and be able to lift less weight. I've never known anyone that wanted to go in the gym and be able to stick on the same weight for ages and improve it by a couple of reps every month or so, okay? People want to add weight to the bar. It's just human nature, particularly for blokes, I've got to be honest, because obviously a bit more egotistical than females, in my experience, in my opinion. So what people do is they tend to load up the bar before they're ready to actually squat it or to lift it. You see this with bench press, you see this with deadlifts all the time. People loading up the bar, personal trainers loading up the bar to give their clients an ego boost, give themselves an ego boost when they're just not ready for it. If you cannot hit depth, hit full range of motion on a particular weight for a particular number of reps, you are not strong enough yet for that weight. The best thing that you can do is strip the weight off, come back down to a previous lower weight that you know that you can do for a comfortable number of reps, leave 1 or 2 in the tank and train that way. Much, much better to be able to squat full depth, 60 kilos for 10 reps than load the bar up with 100 kilos and only be able to do, 10 reps at half reps. It's so much better to be able to do the full range of motion. You will be stronger for it, I promise. Now, half reps and quarter reps, there is a time and place for it. If you want, as a trainer, I do use it quite often. You can do something called a forced rep, potentially. You can do some half reps at the end of an exercise to make that exercise more difficult. So you might get to the end of a set of squats, maybe. You've done 10 reps, full depth reps, and it might get to the end and you're like, well, I've got a couple of reps left in the tank, so I might do a few sort of quarter rep pulses, okay? Wouldn't usually do that with a barbell. That's more for I usually do that with people with goblet squats. So you're getting your goblet squats, potentially when we're still learning how to squat properly, how to move properly, how to, teach that squat pattern. Do a set of full reps, and then you might do some pulses at the end of it, just to really fatigue your muscles a bit more. And again, I'll probably only do that on the last set of the sets that we're doing. So if we're doing 3 sets on an exercise, I would only really do those partial reps at the end of the 3rd set, really, because there's no point in tiring yourself out at the start. The goal has to be to train full range of motion for the majority of the time, not the minority, absolutely not. So hopefully that gives you a little sort of background into why I put a meme up the other day on, someone who said they'd lifted like 450 kilos on leg press. Well, I've got to be honest, you probably didn't, because you probably didn't even do one single full rep. So kind of doesn't count. You're not strong enough for 450 kilos yet. Anyone can wander up to a 450 kilo leg press. Well, not anyone, but a lot of people could wander up to a 450 kilo leg press and do calf raises on it, or just do tiny little pulses which barely count as quarter reps. So anyway, the take home message is train full range of motion at a weight for as long as you can, increase the reps as you go, then you can start thinking about increasing the weight. If you increase the weight too quickly and you can't get to full range of motion, drop back down again. Add a few reps on. As long as you're training in the full range of motion and you're making sure that you're getting strong at the harder parts of the movement, you're onto a winner.